Hello everyone and welcome to our episode of Showcase on Bloodborne. Today's weapon, it's one I love. I think that gets the case for anyone from playing Dark Souls going to Bloodborne. For today's item is the Kirkhammer. A trick weapon typically used by the healing church members. On one side, the easily handled silver sword, and on the other hand, a giant, obtuse stone weapon. Though I think it's actually iron, because it glitters or how it shines in the moonlight. Characterized by the blunt strike of extreme force of impact. The church takes a heavy-handed, merciless stance towards the plague of beasts, an irony not lost upon those wielding this weapon of this most symbolic weapon. There you go. FromSoft makes a pun. We're done here. Video over. 50 out of 50 would bang again. But yeah. But yes, our Dark Souls is known for its very out-of-this-world weapons. Well, Bloodborne sat within the realm of possibility, where all weapons seem like they could be actually lifted, and you know, you can actually hit people with them. Like they aren't so unrealistic you can't lift them. And so you get to the Kirkhammer that destroys this idea entirely. This thing would be so heavy that, I don't know, take 4 people to lift it, just to swing it. Anyhow, visually, the Titans, as they mentioned, the silver sword. The sword is not actually made of silver. Silver is a very, very weak metal. It cannot hold the edge very well, but it's probably just a note on it, just saying it looks like a silver sword. I'm not going to psychoanalyze it. It just looks like a basic two-handed long sword. Simply put. Now, as for that transformation, it's pretty easy. Boom, done. Nothing's fancy there. Although it may not be fancy, but the implications is quite something that a sword that width can hold up the weight of this giant hammer. So yeah, it makes sense about mechanically wise. It doesn't make sense physics wise. So yes, the scabbard of the sword is just a giant hammer. Big surprise. But anyway, the thing is, looks like it's more made of metal because it, you know, shines quite a bit in the moonlight. But anyway, it has a bunch of inscriptions which are fake. This probably says something. Probably here lies whatever enemy you strike with it. Usually as a gravestone. But yeah. Now, simply put, this thing hits like a truck. A very heavy truck. And that's a truck you're driving right on your opponent. So that's the general idea. Quick attacks with the sword, and then when you get to the hammer, it's slow and methodical. But how does it perform against the enemy? But first, let's look at the stats. Going on to the stats for the Kirkhammer. Well, for the physical damage, you can see right off the bat, right out of the gate, we already have good physical damage, 160. Like, that's quite a bit there. Bonus damage is nothing to scoff at to start off with either. I got 64, which all my parameters are set to 45. Okay. Going on to special stats, we can see that durability is 250, that's not going to be a problem at all. And no other special attack to speak of. Going on to a trio bonus, we got a C for strength, E for dexterity, and D for arcane. So there's our arcane again. Going on to the trio requirements, you need 16 strength, not surprised, and 10 skill. So yeah, a little bit, but more or less it's going to be leaning on the strength build, clearly. No surprise when it comes to the giant hammer. Although the sword could easily be called out for being skill-based, but besides the point. Now, going on to specific damage, you can see for the Kirkhammer it is split between the physical damage. You got 64 in blunt and 64 in thrust. We can kind of get the idea where these two sit. Thrust for the sword and blunt for the giant hammer, obviously. Moving on. Now for the animations for the Kirkhammer, or the Kirk Sword I guess in this case. You can see the basic attack is rather rapid. Not the most fast blade out there, or fastest basic attack, but quite rapid in its own right in wide swings. Power attack is a dedicated jab button. Quite quickly too. And the power attack version of this is pretty much the same thing. Just a heavy jab. Reminds me a lot of Dark Souls. Okay, then the backstep attack, you got the uppercut. Backstep power attack, and we'll get a better shot of that, it's just a heavy jab. Not much different from the power attack. Light rolling attack, as you see, it'll just be more or less just an uppercut from the opposite direction. And there's no for the power attack version of the rolling, there is no different from the basic power attack. Okay. The plunge attack. I'll get a better angle of that. As you can see, it's a bit hard to get that, but it's not very something. It's just you driving the blade directly into the ground somehow. Okay, now for the switch attack. Trick weapon. You swing and then boom, you take your hammer without the sword, you can drop it on your opponent. Alright, with the Kirkhammer, you see that the basic attacks are slow, but man do they hit hard, sending dust everywhere. Dust and dirt. Now the power attack is even slower, but it drops directly over your opponent. Nothing exceptionally exciting there until you drop it on an opponent. Power attack version, you really wind up that that drop. Now for light rolling attack, light dash attack, you can see you bash the opponent with the side of the weapon. Well, that's strange. Now for the power attack, you see you draw the weapon and you attack outwards with it. You know, defying physics, because I doubt anyone can lift like that and hold it out like that, but whatever. Light rolling attack, you can see you can drop quickly overhead. It's a very quick attack. And the power attack version is no different from any other normal power attack. Alright, and here's the extra move, the L2. You can see it's just a sideway punch, but you can chain them together for a few attacks. And there's 3 chained, and that's all my character's good for. And next is the switch attack, to switch back to the silver sword. And if you switch and then flash, boom, you're switched back. And now before we forget, the plunge attack with the hammer. It's pretty much what you expect it to be. A tiny hop with dropping of a heavy weapon overhead. I'm sure someone can even jump wielding that thing. Now, going on to the upgrade for the Kirkhammer. Now, for every upgrade, you get quite a bit of decent damage. With my bonus and the base damage included, you're looking at roughly 20 damage increase every time you upgrade it. So damage climbs very quickly, and you already see the scaling for strength goes to a B. And then on this upgrade here, the scaling for arcane goes to a C. So pretty darn good, if you ask me. It's now even an A for strength, so a lot of scaling there. A lot. Yeah. Now, if you do put an arcane gem on here, you can see the entire damage switches over, so this is a valuable arcane weapon. For if you had to have specific arcane builds and such. So pretty good, actually, didn't expect that. Alright, time for performance time. This is gonna be fun. Why? Because I like smashing people with giant hammers. Who doesn't? So we saw the silver sword, the Kirk sword. It's actually quite rapid and it gives very little breathing room for their opponents. Now it could be a decent light crowd control because of the wide swing attacks, but it don't really have the range for that. Now as you probably noticed with the Kirkhammer, it's slow. One big Achilles heel for the Kirkhammer is it's really meant for one-on-ones. Neither thing is really meant for taking on groups. But still, the Kirkhammer is quite good, and there's even a little extra thing, what have you already noticed? If not, I'm going to show it again real soon here. Now pay attention to where I'm hitting my opponents. You see there, 160 damage, so that's okay, but not that great. Again, around 130, yep, 136. Not that great. But what's going on here? It's because I'm not directly touching my opponents. There's an AoE blast, like half a foot. So even if you just lightly graze your opponent, you're doing damage and stunning them with this giant hammer. So that's a very effective idea there. It's a very effective tool. It's not crowd control per se, but it is useful. Alright. And again, such larger opponents though, not everything will be staggered so easily, as you can see here. The giant executioner does not care for my giant hammer. He's not easily staggered by it. And when I do stagger him, it's not very big. Well, headbutting my hammer was a bad idea on his part, wasn't it? How's the sword fare against armor? You know, the armor was designed to resist the sword and arrow, but it doesn't seem like these guys' armor is not really up to the task, because they can get through it pretty easily. If not slashing, by jabbing. Now, as good as armor is, it was never really good against heavy impact weapons, and I think this thing takes the cake for heavy and impact. Although, there's probably better weapons to fight these little buggers with. It's just not that quick, and They shove me so rapidly, so I can't really do a charge attack after I initiated combat. But amusing enough. It's effective to some extent. Now, aside from their armor, what about the Battle Maiden here? Well, sword-wise, you're not going to do a whole lot of damage. She takes light stun attacks, but not dramatic. But stabbing does do good damage, since it passes her armor. Now the question is, what does the actual Kirkhammer do? Well, if you time attacks properly, the Kirkhammer could be one of the best weapons in the game when fighting one-on-one, or even bosses. You see here, you easily do damage and you stun him. And even though I missed that power attack, you can see that AoE damage still did prevalence. And when you charge up the actual attack, boom! She's dead. Super dead. Like, 10 out of 10 dead. I love doing that. Just dropping that hammer on someone. Now, against the Shadow of Yharnam, this weapon probably falters the most. It's not designed for ultra-fast opponents, especially at the hammer portion. Unfortunately, my footage got corrupted there, but you got the idea. I switched to hammer and ended the battle. But I'll show you how it looks on this side of the battle. Now, even though we're both wielding blunt weapons, he has the advantage of speed threefold on me. So I gotta rely on dodging, and as you see, he easily gets out of the range. Easily gets in between my attacks. So against nimble opponents, it's just not a wise idea to use this hammer at all. The best defense of this weapon is a good offense, and you see here, just don't let him attack, get in there. It's the best example of using that weapon. Like that. Okay, let's go on to the pros and cons for the Kirk Sword, as I dubbed it, since it's not the hammer portion. On the pros, it's a fairly good weapon with good DPS. It has a good slash and thrust moveset that's easily used. And it is an incredibly familiar weapon in the hands of any Dark Souls player. Now for cons, I actually have a hard time nailing down a con for this weapon, because I don't think there truly is any. It's a fairly good, competent weapon in my opinion, so I don't think there is any cons. If I'm wrong, feel free to say something. Anyway, going into the score. Damage, I'm going to give a 7 out of 10. There's decent damage and good DPS in there, so 7 out of 10. Reach, I'd give a 6 out of 10. Where the Hunter's Axe and other weapons have, you know, about astute range, this one has slightly longer, just slightly. Animation's pretty good though, it's 7 out of 10. A lot of fluid animations, and they're quick. Even though I mentioned earlier, there's dedicated jab ones. Bonus, I'll give it 8 out of 10. This is clearly catering to strength builds, although if I had good arcane gems, it probably could be good for arcane as well. Miscellaneous, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. This sword is really well rounded. It's something you really can't go wrong with in most situations. So yeah, in total, I give the Kirk Sword 35 out of 50. It's a must-have weapon. Must-have definitely with the other half of this counterpart of this weapon. Now let's go on to the pros and cons of the actual Kirkhammer. I'm not sure if I need the dash in there, but whatever. On the pros, it is an incredibly powerful weapon. The charge attack can level most opponents flat on their faces. Its basic attack has a very light AoE around the impact area, as what I've demonstrated earlier. So, I think that kind of gets the basic pros out of the way. Some obvious cons. It is incredibly slow to swing. And the Kirkhammer doesn't do very well against groups, since it's slow swing speed. It's best used for one-on-ones. Alright. Now, going on to the score with the Kirkhammer. Damage is a 10 out of 10. Is anyone surprised by this? Trust me, if you don't agree with me now, wait until I put gems in it. Reach, 7 out of 10. As the basic reach is the same as the sword, but the AoE just gives it a little bit better. 7 out of 10. Animation though, since you're going to give it a 5 out of 10 since it is slower. And regardless of what animations you have, it's slower to attack and slower targets are usually normally hit, depending on your group that you're fighting. Bonus the same, 8 out of 10. Miscellaneous, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 because it's excellent against bosses, like boss killer right here. For when you mostly want to whittle down opponents or you really want to hit them hard and once, you gotta grab the Kirkhammer. Same thing goes for a majority of other opponents too. So in total, I give the Kirkhammer 38 out of 50. it's definitely a must-have weapon. If you're a strength character, you have the Kirkhammer, you already know you have the Kirkhammer, and you already know you're using it and winning. Oh, hello, what time is it? Oh, you know what time it is. It's hammer time. I had to get that joke in once. You have to give me that. Now, putting gems in this, you take a weapon that's already deadly, and then you turn it up to 11. So yeah, that bonus damage. More than double the base damage. This thing is terrifyingly powerful. I'm gonna wreck someone's day and crush someone's dream with the weight of this hammer. Let's see what I do. I'm going to do the conclusion right here, right after doing that. I got a body pile right behind me. It is the perfect picture. It's the last person you want to run into in Yardom. Of some woman in a white dress covered in blood with a giant hammer. Last person you want to fuck with. Needless to say, I have a tremendous lot of fun with that hammer. It never gets old just flattening enemies like that, even at the cost of my own health. It's even more satisfying in PvP, because it's not easy to flatten someone in PvP with this, given how slow it is. But in the end, it is definitely worth it for anyone with any strength build. Any. Or even arcane builds for that matter too. But that's been Showcase for Tyl. I'd like to thank you all for watching and hope to see you guys next time. Take care out there.